So first off, welcome to the MIT App Inventor Hackathon. We realize this is not something we normally be doing. As you know, we usually have a summit at MIT, but because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, we're unable to do that this year. So this event is really intended to try to give you all an opportunity to come together and build something interesting, something useful, something that will hopefully make a difference given that our lives are so heavily disrupted right now. And we tried to pick a number of themes based on the suggestions from our organizing committee that tried to encompass sort of the global scale of problems that we're looking at as a society today. And so hopefully we will be able to see some really amazing apps that you all are building so that we can really see the difference that App Inventor can make in the world. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Evan Patton. I'm the lead software engineer for MIT App Inventor. I have a PhD from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in artificial intelligence and computer science. And my PhD focus was kind of on optimizing for mobile devices. And so it's kind of been a really exciting time to be at App Inventor as we've been kicking off a lot of our AI work. Kind of interested in seeing what extensions people use. We have a number of AI extensions that we built for App Inventor, so kind of expecting that we might see some of those in this hackathon, which would be pretty cool. And we're hoping that later this week we'll probably do a session on some of those. We also have a number of our team members on this call. So Hal Abelson, who is the professor of 1921 professor of computer science, electrical engineering, computer science at MIT. And he's the principal investigator and co-creator of App Inventor. And we also have members of our development team, Susan Lane, who manages a lot of our translation system and works on a number of different features of App Inventor. And then Lily, who is currently kind of working on updating the blocks editor. And we're hoping that we'll all be available for you to answer your questions, even if we're not answering them through this forum, that we'll be answering them through the Slack channel. And we also encourage you, if you haven't joined our community website, community.appinventor.mit.edu, that you reach out and take a look at the resources that are available there. We also have a number of power users who are there who can help you out if you run into problems. They're also, at least some of them, are going to be helping with the judging that occurs next week. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the questions that I've seen kind of popping up quite a bit on the Slack, and then I see that there's some questions coming through on the chat, so I'll cover those as well. But the first one that I've seen come up quite a bit is about how do we submit apps. So the plan will be that on Thursday, you'll be receiving an email from us that contains a unique link that is tied to your registration information in the system. And when you use that link, you'll be presented a form where you need to provide the name of your app, a short description of what it's about. You have to provide a link to the gallery if you used AI2, or if you used code.appinventor or one of the other services, you can upload an AIA file. You need to provide a link to your video. You can use YouTube or any other of the major video services, and then we'll also have an ability to upload a video. Those are capped in terms of size, so you should make them small if you plan to upload. But I would really suggest that you use one of the major services, because one, they can process your video probably much faster than we can. And you can control the sharing a little bit better as well if you'd like to actually make your video public for people to see your app. You also have to indicate, so we're having People's Choice Award type category where you have to opt into this. So if you want to have people sort of rate your app compared to all the other apps, then you can opt in to being in the People's Choice Award category. We'll make your AIA file available to the world. So you have to be willing to sort of allow us to do that. If you're not willing, then you should select no. But this will make it so that if you like, you can potentially kind of win based on the merit of your app, kind of in the more general sphere. And then you also have to identify the theme that you try to address with your app and sort of the category of your app. Like, is it an educational app? Is it like a game to address something? Is it more of a resources app in terms of helping people get access to information and things like that? So, and that's mostly just to kind of help us better understand sort of how you perceive your app and what you think the real value is. And then the judges get all that information, and they can use that to help them in their judging. There's also a space on the form where you can submit comments to us that are only available to the folks at MIT, if there were any problems or, hey, we really like this, would like if you do it again next year, so on and so forth. So we'll just use that, and that'll be kept private. That won't be shared with anybody. So it's just an opportunity to kind of share how you feel about things. And the judges won't see that either, so they can't use that to, it won't impact their judging of your application. So that covers submitting the apps. If you don't receive the plan is to send it at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which would be midnight GMT time, which will give you it's going to give you 48 hours to kind of finish your final submission Friday and Saturday. So if you don't receive that email around that time, give it a couple minutes, but let us know. We'll also update the website and post a note on the Slack channel when the emails go out. So just be aware of when that's coming, and let us know if there are any problems. So somebody asked about the format of videos. As I mentioned, probably the best thing to do if you can is just upload to a service like YouTube. They'll take care of transcoding and all of that for you. If you are going to try to submit a video to us, either an MP4 file or an MOV file, MP4, most editing programs on Windows will output that, and MOV is the QuickTime format. So if you're using a Mac to make your video, QuickTime natively supports that. So those two are fine. We're getting a number of questions about what components and extensions people can use. Obviously, any of the built-in components to App Inventor are fair game. Any of the extensions MIT have published are freely available for you to use. We've also said that you can use free extensions, but you must get permission from the extension author, stating that you're allowed to use it and that MIT is allowed to make it available if for judging purposes. So, but the goal here is we want sort of everyone to kind of have equal footing, and we don't want to be in a situation where people are paying for stuff and other people can't afford it and things like that. So, so the goal is really just what can you do kind of creatively to maybe work around some of the limitations in App Inventor, of course. So, and we're available as well to answer questions on a technical level as needed. A number of questions have come up about either forming or dissolving teams. So we've given people the option, if you've come into this competition as an individual and you decide you really want to team up with somebody to be able to make more progress. The important thing is in the submission form, there will be a link where you can either kind of turn your registration into a team registration, and you just need to provide a team name and the members of your team. Or if you are a team captain and you've decided to dissolve your team, then you can turn your registration back. You can also add and remove team members to that form when it becomes available. And so this is going to take place of the original submission that you've already done, but it will be pre-populated with the data that you gave us when you signed up. And then lastly, certificates of participation. Everyone, as long as you are either the team captain, an individual, or you've been registered in the list of team members, will be getting a certificate of participation. So if you didn't provide an email address in that section, please update your team member information prior to the end of the hackathon so that we can use that to generate and email all of the certificates. And for the winning teams and the honorable mentions, there'll be a separate note that indicates your placement in the competition in addition to the participation certificate. So That covers all of the stuff on the Slack channel. Let's see what's coming in on chat. So in a previous meeting, Karen said that you'll have tutorials on CloudDB components. Yes, we're still trying to pin down some of the talks, but we will be doing one on CloudDB. The plan is also to offer one on some of the AI components that we've been working on, including the look extension and the personal image classifier. We will be kind of announcing the talks day to day as we go on. And for tomorrow, I'll announce it now, but I'll also put it in Slack. In the morning for Cambridge, at least, we will be having a talk by Chris Staples of MathWorks, who's going to be talking about ThingsSpeak, which is an IoT-based platform for you can connect up Arduinos and other things to it, and then interact with it through a web API using your App Inventor app. So he's going to kind of talk about some of the cool stuff you can do with that. And then Hal will be giving sort of a Q&A session kind of like this, where people can come in and ask questions about, I presume, more technical stuff, but maybe you also want to ask him, about the history of App Inventor and stuff like that. The goal is for these sessions to be both informative and instructive. So there's a lot of opportunity, hopefully, for you to interact with the team members and, kind of learn more, too, about how to leverage App Inventor in interesting ways. Let's see, what are the policies on APIs and Google Apps scripts? If APIs and Google Apps script code are cited or provided, are we allowed to use those features? So I would say yes. The important thing is if you're going to be doing anything with scripting, and this also goes for anything with IoT, if you have a sketch for an Arduino, for example, you should include the source code in your AIA file. So if the judges are going to need it in order to evaluate your app, you should include instructions on how to actually use the script. For the case with Arduino, include the sketch, and then we will identify judges who have the appropriate hardware and do our best to evaluate your app with the corresponding hardware. In the case where maybe we can't get access to our hardware, that's where it's really useful to provide that text-based description, as well as demo the hardware in your video. So the judges have an appropriate sort of baseline for understanding how the app works, how the script works, and how they interact with one another. So, but yeah, we've seen a number of our power users even have come up with some really sophisticated scripts for, say, interacting with Google Spreadsheet and stuff like that. And so, yeah, if you want to use those types of scripts, that's fine, but we need to be able to evaluate them. So it's just important that we're able to see exactly how it works, and that helps us better understand how the app works as well. Is there a limit on the number of screens for an app? While there's technically no limit on the number of screens for an app, just be aware that as you add screens to App Inventor does slow down a little bit. So you want to leverage screens and kind of use them intelligently. I think we'll be doing a workshop. I'll have to double check the schedule, but I'm pretty sure we're going to do a workshop on how to make use of what we call virtual screens, where you use a mix of vertical arrangements to simulate many screens while still maintaining a single screen. One place where it's really useful to use multiple screens is if you're working on a team. You can develop the app in parallel by working on different screens and different projects. And then there's a tool called the Project Merger tool, where you can take all those AIA files and combine them together to make a single app. There is a note on our FAQ page for the hackathon with a pointer to the Project Merger tool. So for those of you working in teams in particular, I would encourage you to take a look at that tool and understand how it works, because you might be able to use that as part of your app development. Are we allowed to upload the app to Google Play after the contest? Absolutely. We don't maintain any rights to the apps you're building for the hackathon. The App Inventor terms stipulate that you 100% own the rights to the apps that you build with App Inventor. So if you'd like to publish them to the Google Play Store, you're absolutely welcome to. There are instructions on our website on how to do that. I've encountered a problem while creating a login signup form using Firebase DB. Yeah, we could probably do some of the more technical discussions as, you know, if we can get questions in advance for that type of stuff, we could probably walk through. I would also, like I said, I would encourage you to go on the community site because this is a common sort of workflow we see people try to attempt as part of their apps. And there have been a number of examples using different technologies. Some use CloudDB, some use Firebase. I think even somebody got it working using like Google OAuth. So I would definitely encourage you to look there. Just use the search functionality in the community and search for login. I'm sure you'll get a number of hits. Let's see. Due to the pandemic, how would you advise us as a team to work remotely? So obviously this is sort of a function of sort of your own work style. We on the App Inventor team obviously are all working remotely as well, and we've been mainly making use of Google Hangouts and Zoom to coordinate either text chat or video calls to communicate. And obviously for us, since we're working on the sources of App Inventor, we're doing it through a version control system. But as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we do have a tool in App Inventor called the Project Merger tool, which would allow you to develop in parallel and then merge the final result together. You could also use a technique called pair programming, where you could have one member of the team share their screen and sort of be the person doing the coding, and then have other members of the team sort of talk through various features or functionality for the app, and you know, that person edits. Another thing that we've kind of seen people doing in the past, particularly in some educational settings, is the server code.appinventor.mit.edu allows you to use an anonymous account that gives you a forward code phrase that you need in order to access the projects. And so what we've seen students do is they'll use that anonymous account to then share the forward phrase with other team members, and then people will go in at different times of the day and work on the app. And so there are strategies like that that you can use where maybe you're not comfortable with the project merger tool, or you're using the virtual screens approach, and you want to sort of edit kind of collaboratively that way. So that's something that you could also try out. We've heard some positive feedback from teachers using App Inventor that's a great way for the students to work collaboratively. So you know, that might be a way of doing it as well. When will we get results after submission? So the timeline that we have, which maybe we should put up on the website. No, it is on the website. Okay, so the timeline we have is ideally the submissions will come in on, for us, is Saturday evening. And we're going to ideally have about a week or so where the judges are going to review the full set of submissions. We have about 150 judges at the moment, and there are about a little over 1,000 registrations. So we have quite a number of apps to review. We're hoping that it'll take us about a week. Of course, it'll depend on the complexity of apps and things like that. You know, so that may need to be adjusted. We will see, but the goal is to ideally review all of the apps in the first week or so. That will narrow it down to a set of finalists, which we will announce on July 25th. And then the finalists will be reviewed by the team here to narrow it down to the final, you know, first, second, and third in each of the categories, as well as potential honorable mentions based on the judges' recommendations. So, you know, we are expecting that July 3rd will be the final announcement date for the winners. I'm working on a multi-purpose app which helps you reduce time taken to open websites. Which theme will my app come in? Well, that's an interesting technical question. I mean, one could argue that that's better resource allocation. You know, for example, if you need to preload sites for a natural disaster response, or you're just in an area where there's limited internet connectivity. One could argue that by you're trying to optimally allocate resources by not using the internet when you can help it. So that would probably be the best option. And depending on obviously the content of those websites and things like that, maybe you could tie into something else, like if it's resources for healthcare workers out in the field or something like that, then there's sort of a play there that could be made as well. But use the app description field to sort of explain your reasoning to the judges as well, because that'll help them when they're reviewing the application. We sort of covered this one, but will we keep the rights to our designed apps? Absolutely. As I mentioned, the terms of service for App Inventor state that you own all the rights to your apps, and that's no different in the case of the competition. The only thing we're asking is that obviously you give us the right to distribute it, both as if you submit for people's choice, that you allow us to distribute as part of that, but also to the judges so that they can review it. So. Let's see. Firebase DB works fine on MIT Companion, but not working in the APK file. We may need to follow up with you on that offline. It should absolutely work in the APK file. If you have a specific error message, maybe we can debug it then. And when is the next Zoom workshop? As I mentioned, so tomorrow, July 14th at 1400 hours GMT, we'll be doing the ThingsSpeak and IoT workshop, and then at 1500 hours GMT, Hal will be doing a hackathon discussion similar to this one. And then following up, I guess July 15th at 500 GMT, Karen will be doing a tutorial on CloudDB. And I expect we'll be rebroadcasting that on YouTube for people who aren't available at that time. At 10:30 GMT, Sarvesh Karkanis, who's one of our master trainers, is going to be doing IoT and healthcare workshop. And so that might be an interesting opportunity for those of you who might be interested in that intersection of topics to attend. I'm planning to also do a data structures discussion as well, so sort of organizing your data in your app and making use of some of the newer functionality like dictionaries, which we recently added to kind of structure your data better. And then Hal will be doing another sort of general Q&A session. So, but each day we'll announce stuff in advance. So just keep an eye on the announcements channel in Slack. And we're trying to, the reason we're doing it this way is mainly a concern about people who aren't participating in the hackathon kind of jumping into the Zoom unannounced, and we don't want to, potentially put anybody at risk or anything like that with those types of activities. So just keep an eye out on the Slack channel, and we'll keep everything there. Let's see. Yes, right. With all the meetings, like I said, we're going to try to put them up on YouTube as well. We realize there's no good time for anybody. We have participants in 71 different countries. So the breadth of people participating and all that is quite fantastic. But that means there's no one good time. And so we're sort of trying to spread them out throughout the day so that, this one might be pretty late for you, but the one that Karen does, say on CloudDB, should be, in the morning time. So relatively speaking, for people, say in India, or I guess India and China, for example. So just keep an eye out, like I said, and we'll do our best to make sure everyone has access to the same information. Are there mentors or people we can contact who can give us advice on our app? Certainly. Like I said, the power users are available on the community site, and they help out anybody basically who has a question there. I also spend quite a bit of my time on the community site helping people. And so we're just going to continue to monitor both the question and answer sections in Slack and the general help forums to better assist people as needed. And the power users are sort of spread out around the world, so you're more likely to get a response if you post there than if you post in the Slack sometimes, because most of us are based on the East Coast in the US, and so if you post something at 2 a.m. our time, we're not going to see it until probably 9 or 10 a.m. So just be aware of the time zone differences. How many megabytes should the file size of our app be? So App Inventor is the AI2.App Inventor service. The projects are limited to 10 megabytes. So you may want to be careful about embedding particularly large resources. If you go on the community site, power user Typhoon, he has a number of examples of how to load assets asynchronously when your app starts so that you can have much larger apps. If you use code.app inventor, projects are limited to 50 megabytes. So that's another potential thing that you can do. In the next release, which unfortunately it's going out after the hackathon, so it's not useful for this particular event, but fortunately in the next release, we're going to be upping the limit to 32 megabytes on AI2. We found some optimizations we can make in terms of how we handle AIA files there. So so you'll be able to build bigger projects in the future. But ideally, if you want to keep it to less than 10, that's great, but you could do up to 50. Similarly, for the videos, we'd like if you ideally could keep the video size capped to 50 megabytes if you're going to upload it to us. Obviously, it can be basically as big as you want if you're going to upload it to YouTube, because they will they'll recompress it into the various formats. So, can I use CloudDB to make the login signup form? Yeah, you certainly could. I think there are examples on the community site of how to do that. But I'll also pass along to Karen that there's some interest in doing that as well. Maybe she can include that as an example in her workshop on Wednesday. As you said, there are about 1,000 contestants. Is there a fixed number of how many finalists there will be? Thanks once again. We're kind of expecting that, well, it's going to be a function of how the judges sort of score things, but our sort of expectation is we'll likely see the top 10 for each category as the finalists, which will be 50 projects that we have to do a second round of review on in more detail. So kind of expect that. It also, like I said, will depend on the judging. So if there are a lot of people scoring very highly, we may accept some more as finalists just to kind of give people an equal shot at things. Internally, we have a rubric that the judges are going to have access to that they'll use for scoring the projects. And then based on the scoring, you'll sort of be in, like the top 10% or top 20%. Judges also have, when they're reviewing, the option of identifying the project as an honorable mention, so that, even if maybe they're not scoring it particularly high in one category and they know that's going to hurt the app, they'll say, well, this is a really innovative project and, it should at least get honorable mention, but, the design is all off or something like that. I don't know. But that, with the number of judges we have, everyone's going to be reviewing, or each app will get reviewed by at least 2 judges, possibly 3, depending on timing. We don't want to, all of these people are judging voluntarily. We don't want to abuse their time in terms of asking them to spend 50 or 60 hours reviewing applications. So we're just trying to be conscious of that. We also aren't sure, because it'll also be a function of how many people actually submit, right? So even though we have over 1,000 contestants, if maybe 20% decide not to submit an app at the end, then that changes the numbers quite a bit. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. Is it required to make a login page? No, there's no reason to make you don't have to make a login page. Obviously, do what makes sense for your app. For those of you who haven't seen it, last year, or this is a couple years ago now, we did an app with YR Media called Moodring, and what Moodring was designed to do is sort of just be a journaling app that allowed people to kind of track how they were feeling every day, and had a bunch of links to resources for mental health and other things. So, that's a great example of an app where just because everything lives locally on your phone, you don't need to have a login system for that. By virtue of kind of logging into your phone, you can log into the app. If you're planning to make an app where there's actually multiple people collaborating on something, we have seen apps in the past where people are say, oh, I'm going to connect resources like I've got, water or whatever. Do you need water? And maybe you want to identify people, then yeah, maybe, you would want to build a login page for the app, but no, it's not a requirement that you have to build a login page. Will you also organize workshops after the hackathon also? I mean, that's something we could consider. We haven't really done much of that. We have been trying to increase the amount of content on our YouTube channel. So sort of continue to expect to see maybe new tutorials and things like that appearing there. A number of our students have done a lot of excellent work giving demos and things like that that are available. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. And it's certainly something we can consider doing, especially for some of the more advanced topics around App Inventor, whether that's Cloud DB or the AI or the IoT work. Our goal is to try to make this a more accessible platform. And so, giving people the resources they need is definitely one of the ways we can do that. So I think we'll definitely consider it. By the way, I want to say thanks to you guys and the contestant organizers for going through the trouble of making these workshops. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. We really love seeing the creativity that everyone brings. So it's just great to see all the apps that you're going to build. We do a hackathon, not at this scale, obviously, at the summit every year, and so people build some really innovative stuff, and we're really just excited to see what everyone's going to bring to the table, given that this is much larger than any event we've done before. Please update the workshop details. Yep, we'll do that. How will I retrieve data if I use Cloud DB? So the way Cloud DB works, and Karen will talk about this more in her workshop that she gives, it kind of works like if any of you have used the TinyDB component, there's a tag that identifies some piece of data, and then the value, which is the data that it identifies. And CloudDB basically works the same way, where you can put data in associated to a given label, and then you can request that data back. And the CloudDB server itself, the version that is used by default, runs at MIT. But you also have the option of running your own solution if you like in the future. So that's one database that's available to you. The other, which works very similarly, is Firebase DB. Again, it uses this kind of tag value system where you assign a value to a particular tag and then you can read it back. So kind of a naive system that you could use for making a login system is just sort of store the username and the password that way. But there are other things that you could do. Do we need to make our app compatible for different languages for judges around the world? All the judges that we've asked have a decent understanding of English, so I don't think that's necessary. As long as the app is available or understandable in English, I think that's fine. If you want to build it in your own native language, like the app itself in your native language, just kind of maybe provide materials for the judges that sort of explains how the app works, so that they can kind of follow along. Although it'd be nice if all the apps are available in English, but I guess we can try to work around that. We do have judges from all corners of the world, so they are likely versed in a second language. Most of them are likely versed in a second language as well. So, we've got some judges from kind of, Chinese-speaking parts of the world, some judges from, Europe, so they will cover a couple different languages. So. In workshops, please let us turn on our camera and mic, please. So I think I've explained this in the Slack. For legal reasons, we're not planning to do that. Mainly because MIT for these types of events requires paperwork from everybody in the event, and so the goal is just we're not doing video and audio except for the people who work at MIT. So I'm sorry for that, but that's just how it has to be done. But you could use, for example, a speech to text engine, VoiceOver, which is the kind of accessibility functionality for Mac. I think has the ability to do that pretty easily, or Siri will do it for you. Windows, I think Cortana does something similar where you can just kind of speak and it will type what you're saying. So, can the videos be longer than 2 minutes? The judges, out of respect for the judges, we asked for 2 minutes just as a way of kind of allowing people to highlight the major features of their app and sort of explain what was going on. It's possible that you could make it slightly longer, but the judges are going to be spending time watching these, and so you also don't want to I think you want to be mindful of their time as well, because most likely judges are going to have to review somewhere between 10 and 20 submissions, and so I think more often than not, you'll want them to spend time actually using your app and playing with it rather than watching the video. But you can sort of, that might be up to your discretion. Obviously, don't make something that's like 10 or more minutes long because they won't necessarily have time to spend on that. Let's see. So what will the co-hosts be doing in this meeting? Obviously, everyone is here for a different reason. In this particular meeting, I think we're just here for support. Obviously, for the MIT team, they're welcome to answer questions, or if they have additional things that they want to add, they can go ahead and ask or answer in the chat. Let's see, next up, what's the name of the YouTube channel on which you will upload a recording of this meeting? Oh, so the channel is the MIT App Inventor channel. I think if you just go and type in MIT App Inventor, let me double check that though. Yeah, so if you type in MIT App Inventor into the YouTube search, and I'll even just post it. So I put it in the chat here. I'll also put it in the Slack channel once we're done. Yeah, so this is where we post a lot of our tutorials over the years. There's some examples of things like decomposing a problem in the real world into a set of components that you can then build an app around. So it might be worthwhile for you to watch that series of tutorials. And there are also some examples of apps that people have done. And I think we also have now a couple of videos from our summit from last year that kind of go through some of the new features and things like that we're working on for App Inventor. And there's also a playlist on artificial intelligence where you can kind of see some of the more technically advanced things that the team has been working on here. It's just an opportunity to just see some of the great work that the staff and the students are doing. This question about prizes, we're still sort of trying to organize that right now. And we've got a couple organizations we're working with who are interested in sponsoring some prizes for the hackathon, but that still remains to be determined. So, all right. Are there any other questions right now? All right. I guess if there are no more questions, I'll just open it up. Do any of the MIT team members have anything they'd like to add to the discussion, or anything you just kind of want to say about the hackathon in general?
Hello, I don't have anything to say at this time, but I am available for questions, and I will be in the Slack channel.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, I expect to kind of see us all in there. We'll do our best to help you, but we're also trying to be conscious that we don't want to give too much help to one particular person over anybody else. So we'll do our best also to try to answer questions publicly, so that everyone is able to see the responses and understand what's going on. So just be aware that if you ask us something privately, we may not respond privately, because we want to make sure that everyone gets to see the answer, especially if it's something common like how do we submit the app or something like that. And so that's what also a reason for doing these video discussions, because that way, everyone gets the opportunity to learn about what's going on. And Hal, would you like to maybe kind of say something, or? Hold on, I gotta unmute you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay now. So it's great to see everybody here. We're looking forward to some really nice work and some nice apps. And again, I'll be on the Slack channel answering questions. And as Evan said, we'd like to make all responses public. So if you really want to ask something private, mark in your question that you'd like the answer privately, even though we might not do it, because we don't want to give people too much of an advantage over anybody else. But anyway, it's great to get started. You got, what, 4 days, 5 days to do something wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And like I said, I'll post the schedule for tomorrow in the chat. And we're looking forward to seeing all the amazing apps you build. Thanks.